Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Gambians. Good evening, Gambians living abroad, or the Gambians in diaspora, like we will say. We're back again today. We're talking about having a conversation. Like we always say, it doesn't matter what the topic is, what the topic of the conversation is, what the topic of the debate is. We always believe that we are here to have debates, but these debates are not zero-sum games whereby somebody is a loser, somebody is a winner. We don't believe in that. So all the debates we have here, all the discussions we have are going to be, we try to be beneficial to us taking part, myself as a host, the panelists, and also the viewers. So we're here once again with this, the topic of the debate that was meant to happen last Friday, but we couldn't due to technical reasons. The question we ask is like, due to the transitional nature of the politics, the whole politics, social politics in the Gambia, do Gambians who, for example, were victims of human rights abuse during Jammeh's era, do they stand a better chance of seeking justice or seeking justice abroad on the outside of the Gambia? And when we say internationally, we don't mean ICC. We just mean seeking justice somewhere else. Because you can, for example, say ECOWAS, or you can say the African Court, or you can say even the UN, but doesn't necessarily mean has to be the ICC. So we are on that subject again today, and I've got two panelists. I've got Sambou, who is a trained lawyer, lives in the UK. And I also have Colonel retired Samsidin Sarr. Also, he was, like he said, obviously from his name, retired colonel. That means he was in the Gambian Armed Forces, but he also once the United Nations ambassador for the Gambia. Gentlemen, we welcome you to Gunjur Online. To our viewers, I mean, Palu is no guest, he's not a stranger to them. But again, if we can just follow the formalities, if you can introduce yourself. First, we start with Mr. Sambou, and then we go to Colonel retired Sarr.
Thank you very much, Dave, for having me on your platform. Once more, like you said, I am not a stranger on this platform. I think you've given a brief introduction of who I am already. So in that case, I'll just allow you to carry on with Colonel Sarr.
Okay, Colonel retired Sam, please. The floor is yours.
Mr. Manneh, thank you very much for inviting me today. And since in our preliminary session we talk about time constraint, I want to limit my introduction to what you have already said about me. I think everybody knows who Samsidin Sarr is in the Gambia and in the diaspora. So I don't think I need to say much, but to just hit the topic so that we have time and talk about what we need to talk about, unless you want me to say beyond more than what I have said already.
No, the floor is yours. We are happy. If you're happy with the little introduction I've done, if you're happy with that, then we are also happy with that.
Yes,
I mean, yeah. The only thing I could have added, obviously, was we are hoping we will have a member, or what's it called, just a staff of the Gambian Victim Center to be here, because we thought that they will add a whole lot dimension to any discussion about justice in the Gambia, because they are right in the thick of it in the Gambia. So unfortunately, we're hoping we still might have Mr. Kijera or somebody else from the Victim Center to join us. But here we go. But right now, Mr. Sambou, I mean, like I said, you're not a stranger here. So probably if you just want to try we start with you with the discussion. Do you think that you believe in what you've seen so far and from your professional background that there is any chance of you given the politics of the transitional justice where we are in the Gambia? Jammeh's victims, do you think they stand a chance of actually getting any justice in the Gambia, or are they better off pursuing it elsewhere?
Thank you very much for the question, Dave. Yes, with regards to this topic, I think you've actually framed the question very well, because I don't think we can discuss transitional justice and the justice for the victims of Jammeh without covering the issue of the politics behind it. So for me, really, what I can see so far, I think for the victims, in terms of them getting justice, there are two things. One, because justice would be a very big word, because one would be civil justice, which would be let's say a civil action for compensation and restoration, and obviously the other one would be justice in terms of having those who are responsible for whatever violations that they've had meted on them or meted on them, being held accountable in a court of law. So I think as for the former, which is civil justice, I think that is feasible. That's something that is feasible. But whether the political will is there for them to be compensated, so that the state or the Gambian state could sort of avoid the victims having to pursue civil action themselves, that's a whole question of its own.
Okay.
And with regards to justice in the criminal sense, I don't think the political will is there. And unfortunately, the reason why I am usually an optimist, and I think the victims have been given a very raw deal, and this would not be. It would be very easy for people to blame the TRRC as an institution, but I think the TRRC as an institution, I don't think they would be to blame when it comes to this particular issue. Say, for instance, if the TRRC comes to the end of their mandate, and then it turns out that whatever it is that came out from the TRRC did not satisfy the criminal justice outcome that the victims wanted or that the victims envisaged, I think most people would just want to easily blame the TRRC, but I wouldn't, and I tell you why. Because the TRRC was established by an act of the National Assembly, the TRRC Act. Obviously, they've had whatever vehicle it is that they are riding now. The vehicle was built and made for them, and they've been given instructions on with regards to how to drive it. So they don't really have a choice. All they are doing is just delivering a mandate that has been set within the act. And I think the problem starts with the act itself, which is why I think there are only two people to blame here, and it would be President Barrow and the former Attorney General Batambedu, and by extension the National Assembly, because they should have scrutinized the legislation properly to make sure that everything that it needs to address is addressed. Because one big problem with the act is that the act does not legally mandate for the president or the government of the day to implement whatever recommendations comes from the TRRC. And personally, I think that is where the problem lies. I am not sure what the rules of the National Assembly are when with regards to private members' bills to amend an existing legislation, but I think the Victim Center and those who are speaking on behalf of the victims, what they should really be looking at now is they should be looking at they should be looking at the TRRC Act very closely, and they should try and make sure that they apply pressure on Parliament, sufficient pressure to ensure that that legislation is amended so that whatever recommendation comes out of the TRRC would not be a subject of discretion when it comes to implementation on the part of the government of the day. It has to legally mandate the government of the day to implement the recommendations in full and within a particular period of time. Otherwise, I think the politics will come into it, and at the end of the day, it would come down to nothing. So, unfortunately, personally, from what I can see so far, I think in terms of both criminal and civil justice, I think the victims would struggle to get what they want in terms of justice in the Gambia.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Sambou. Before Sarr, before you can chip in, I've just basically just to summarize what you've said. I mean, just to summarize, and you can correct me. The TRRC is a vehicle, but this vehicle got limitations, and the limitations are what? The political will. Is that right?
Political will and the and the boundaries and their terms of reference that are set within the TRRC Act.
Which I call limitations. That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. Colonel, retired. You heard Mr. Sambou. What's your take? Do you also feel like he does, and I do as well, that they are for TRC or for the victims of Jammeh era to achieve justice, if you want to call it that, there has to be a political will, and we don't know yet. But like he said, there's obviously from what Mr. Sambou just said, if he's going to go by the framework of the TRRC, the limitations, the boundaries already set up by TRRC, what chance do we have? What chance do these victims have?
Yes, amazingly, I find myself agreeing with him completely. But my emphasis in this whole issue is the civil settlement, like civil justice, rather than the criminal justice.
Okay.
Because, and I think, all those pursuing this matter are focusing more on the criminal justice to lynch Jammeh than to really see how best we can look into settling the civil issue, because I think that could have been settled a long time ago. Because knowing Gambians and how difficult conditions are in this country, most people who were affected, gravely I mean, because if you look at it, if we come to compensation, every Gambian would pop up from everywhere and say, there is an event, I stop here, the policeman slapped me, I need compensation. That was everything. That before you know it, the whole Gambia is line up asking for compensation. So first we have to differentiate who is entitled, who is the typical victim and who's not. I was locked up, I was traumatized, I had bad time in jail for about 10 months, but I processed it after I came out and realized that this is part of a government that existed at a time that the overwhelming majority of Gambians accepted and even felt we had deserved the punishments we had. And most people were also thinking along these lines that those who suffered under Jammeh, in most cases, deserve what they got because they which was made to the setup. But like I said, we could have taken a very sober look at how best we can find those who are real victims and help them, compensate them, reparation. But the idea of reparation going with taking Jammeh to court and bringing him to Mile 2 or taking him to McCarthy Square and hanging him, I don't think that is right. That is why we are wasting our time, wasting resources, and not going anywhere. We have seen what happened in other countries. Apartheid was the worst kind of human rights infringement in history. But those guys, they settled and appeased the victims. They could not settle with everybody, but they knew the Steve Biko's. Most families, Nelson Mandela didn't care, but he suffered most. You go to Ghana, the same thing. Nigeria, the same thing. So, but in the Gambia, I think we had some bunch of crooks and insincere people who were pursuing this matter in a way that they took the money and shared it among themselves. You know, in Gambian culture, like let's put, for instance, the Jammeh assets, when they sold them. I had him say that the first wave of selling, and they still have owed them, they recovered about $1 billion. And they paid, you know, the broker, Alpha Barry, $100 million. A job that could have been done by the AMRC without being charged. That money could have been looked into and see who are most entitled and settle with them, give them, even if you were to give everybody about $500,000 at this time, I am sure they would say, thank you very much. I got something to start with, and I have forgiven and I have forgotten. Because but if you want to pursue this criminal issue, that's where the political will not be favorable to those who are pursuing it, because the government at the end of the day is going to look at what favors me politically. You know, if lynching Jammeh, lynching Jammeh, would that help me stabilize the nation and go forward and you know, help the country grow to another level? You know, some people will say, if the country is going to fall apart, do it. Just like in 2017, you know, for Jammeh to go bring all the arsenals, all the combatants to come and turn the Gambia into rubbles, but he must go. And the consequence, we are still feeling it. So to cut a long story short, I want to agree with Pa that the civil issue is possible, settlement is possible, and I think is the best. For the criminal one, I don't want to really I don't want to encourage pursuing it too long, because I don't think it's going to help us. That's my position.
Okay. Thank you so much, Colonel Retired. Those are very interesting points. As you would know, there'll be lots of people who will disagree with you, and very vehemently so. But I think it's important we also try to balance here, the balance between justice.
Also, there will also be a lot of people who will agree with me.
Yes, definitely, yes, obviously, yeah. But I think it's nice for us to balance between having justice and also having, how do you want to call it, how to address the human rights abuses that happen. I mean, your suggestions, obviously, your proposals, like I said, for some people, you know, they agree with it. Other people very, very vehemently disagree with it. But that's the benefit of having these conversations. Like I said, it's not here to castigate each other or to insult each other. It's just to Gambians to have conversations as brothers and sisters, so that we can have a common ground, if you want to call it that. You know, at least a basis. We can have a basis where we can, you know, we can work from. But we don't want to have a Gambia where people are so divided. I think that'll be a very, very wrong way of going about it. Now, personally, I think we should leave it to the victims themselves. The government shouldn't actually obstruct or limit the victims seeking justice for what they feel happened to them. So, like Pa was giving us what the limitations and what's it called, the framework of the TRRC might be. But within that framework, if there has been like, how do you want to call it? Just the possibility, if you want to call it that, or even just giving people this opportunity for them to seek justice if they don't feel that they have achieved justice in the Gambia. I think TRRC or the Gambian government should be able to give Gambians that right and that freedom, really, that privilege, if you want to call it that. But if you leave it to the discretion of the government of the day, and there's always political calculations here, I think that'll be disastrous for us. And I also want to touch on your comparison. You brought in South Africa. I think there are some parallels there, but there are huge differences between South Africa and the Gambia for a lot of various reasons. But I think it's important for me to touch on this. Even South Africa, the Truth and Reconciliation they went through, you can see South Africa is still a mess. Because lots of people in South Africa, they didn't feel that they had justice. Not even that they didn't feel it. It's actually true that there was no justice. But because for the sake of, like you were saying, for the sake of let's move forward, everything was put to one side. They thought it worked for them. I don't think it has worked for them. I'm not a political analyst. It would have been nice to have Dr. Sulayman Njie here, but for some reasons, on some foreseen circumstances, he couldn't join us. But I don't think South Africa, anybody could say those people actually attain justice. And you can see the society, the community, the country as South Africa is still very, very divided. It makes it so bad that black South Africans, they take it out on all the black people in South Africa, because they still felt so and they're still so bitter of what's happened to them because there's been no justice. So I don't think Gambia should also we should just try to shove everything under the rug because it's inconvenient or because somebody felt that we try to link Yahya Jammeh. Personally, I think Yahya Jammeh did tremendous damage to Gambian people. I think Yahya Jammeh should definitely answer to that. So how he answers to that, I think some of those, obviously, the government will have to obviously be the overseer. But I think the people who have been victims, who have been at the receiving of Yahya Jammeh's brutality, they should be given that fundamental human right to seek justice somewhere. What the mechanisms are going to be for that, I'm not too sure. But I don't think any state in the Gambia, any government, where that, obviously we are very aware of the political calculations here. But I don't think there should never be any encumbrance for people seeking justice if they feel like doing that. Mr. Sambou, I don't know what's your take on this.
Yes, I think I could have easily guessed what what Colonel Sarr's position was going to be on this particular issue. But unfortunately, I don't agree that that victims should just focus on civil justice and not retributive justice with regards to the abuses, to make sure that the people that are responsible, the person that was overall in charge, whether he had any direct responsibility or not, was Jammeh. It doesn't matter whether he has whether there is proof of him being directly involved or not, but he was overall in charge of the safety of every citizen and every resident of that country. And he cannot, one thing Jammeh can deny that yes, he was not the one that was primarily responsible for what happened to the victims. But what he cannot deny is he cannot deny knowledge of what had happened. And he cannot deny the fact that he has not taken any steps to make sure that the people that were responsible were held to account. In fact, one thing that is going to work against Jammeh is the Indemnity Act, which was passed after the April 10, 11 student incident, which is sufficient evidence to show that Jammeh knew that human rights abuses were happening, and human rights abuses happened on April 10 and April 11. That is one proof. And the next proof would be the transitional clauses in the 1997 Constitution, because if at all you are not aware, you have no knowledge of any human rights abuses or any criminal conduct that may be pursued at a later date, why would you indemnify yourself and your AFPRC colleagues? Obviously, he must have known that something has happened that shouldn't have happened. So Jammeh had 22 years to sort out the mess. He didn't. And unfortunately, because he has not taken any steps to address the problem, now it is left to other people to pick up the pieces. And how that is going to be addressed, it should not. I don't think we should look at convenience because if at all we are going to look at convenience, then we may as well just save taxpayers' money and get rid of the police force and get rid of the courts and get rid of all the judges. Because at the end of the day, if somebody commits an act that is against the law, regardless of who they are, regardless of what their status is or however important they were at the time that the incident happened, it is important for public justice, and it is important for the restoration of trust in our justice system, to ensure that every single person. I am not somebody I am not remotely interested in amnesties and things like that, because I think those things would just set the wrong precedents. For me, really, justice, it has so many objectives. One, we need justice because the victims need to be restored. Clearly, that is something that will be dealt with by the civil civil remedies that the victims may get, if at all that is something that the TRRC offers, or if not, the victims could take civil action and they will get that. But in terms of holding Jammeh and others criminally responsible, what that would do is that would deter other people from doing that in the future. On top of that, that would give the state an opportunity to reform some of these people. It's very possible. It's very possible that some of these people have, obviously, because all what we can see from some of the things that have been done, especially the nature in which these were conducted. You cannot imagine that a human being would do such a thing to their fellow human being. So clearly, there's something wrong with how these people think. There's something wrong with their mindset. So clearly, having them taken through the courts and convicted and locked up would give the state an opportunity to reform these people, maybe for the future. I don't believe in the death penalty, and I hope that one day, very soon, Gambia will get rid of the death penalty. And I do not wish the death penalty on any of them. I hope that they would get the sentences that they deserve, and I hope that the victims would get not just justice criminally, but they would also get the compensation that they deserve, because clearly some of these victims have suffered for a very long time, especially if you look at the soldiers that were killed in November 11. Some of them were, in fact, most of them, if not all of them, were breadwinners of their families. So their families have been suffering from that time all the way up to when Jammeh left. So clearly we cannot just focus on just the civil side of things. Colonel Sarr, I think at some point Jammeh would have to be held. Not just Jammeh, because this, in fact, I think this is one problem that I think is actually grappling the TRRC. There is so much focus on Jammeh, which is, and I suspect, and one thing I suspect the TRRC may be trying to do, this is not a criticism, of course, this is just an observation. One thing I suspect that they may be trying to achieve is they may be trying to build up sufficient evidence to make sure that Jammeh would be the sole person that they would go after and prosecute, and they would leave everybody else, or they would use everybody else as witnesses against Jammeh, and Jammeh would be the sole, Jammeh would be obviously painted as the sole perpetrator. And I think if they go down that path, that would be an injustice, because clearly what happened over the 22 years period was not the making of one man, and in certain instances, clearly, Jammeh was not responsible for some of those crimes, even though he should have held the people responsible to account, yes, but he may not be primarily responsible for every single one of those offenses. But I think not just Jammeh, I think every single culprit should have their day in court. I don't believe in amnesties, I don't believe in deals, and I don't believe in all those things. I think when somebody is guilty, they have to serve the time, or maybe once they are convicted, they have an option. They can plead guilty early, and they can get a reduction of their sentence. But to just allow people to just come and we have this weird or this awkward situation that has been created by Batambero, that, oh yes, once you tell the truth, we are going to let you free. I think that was a mistake.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Sambou. For now, retired. The floor is yours.
Okay, I have listened to both of you, and I still disagree with you guys.
Okay.
I mean, I started with what happened July 22nd, 1994, and I saw how things evolved. Okay. I saw the emotional fluctuation and even the social and political fluctuation of the masses towards what happened. Coup d'etat is illegal. You know, the fact that when it happened, nobody could see its illegality and was overwhelmingly celebrated, you know, gave us, put us in that position of culpability in promoting it. When we were arrested in the beginning, because we tried to resist it, I tried to resist it. I tried to stop it by all means possible that day, and it was impossible. Some of us, the majority, didn't just even know how it even happened, especially the senior officers, you know. But when we were all arrested and taken to Mile 2, we know what was happening outside. People were celebrating, saying that, well, this is just a military issue. These guys are kept where they belong. And we could have been executed, and it would have been perfectly normal, because that's what happened in Liberia, that's what happened in Sierra Leone, that's what happened in Ghana. This is the SOP of military takeovers, which were acceptable all over. And for a while, Jammeh was going around the world celebrated by heads of state, even Senegal here. You know, they came, nobody questioned, you know, what he was doing, despite the fact that Senegal for so long resisted coup d'etats and was held to be one of the greatest West African nations that had never really broken this pattern or never joined this pattern of coup d'etat. So, you know, the illegality of coup d'etat, if we want to punish, we start from there and look at what conditions prevail that caused the coup d'etat. And it will start from the Jawara regime, because when you start sending soldiers abroad and say on missions and telling them that if you die, you're not going to be buried in your homes, you're going to be buried there, and it became an emotional trauma to soldiers until they rebelled, that government should all be held culpable for what happened in 1994, because it was a rebellion. The conditions that created the coup also had a lot to do with foreign troops in the country. There was no justification to bring foreign troops and give them all the responsibilities of taking care of the nation, because nobody is that emotionally committed to protect the nation when it comes to that level of disintegration. And that's what happened in 1994. All the Nigerians who were in command of all the units withdrew to their homes and just watched us. And you know, what the small soldiers, let me put it that way, you know, changed the dynamics. And before you know it, they were all given C-130 planes and they left home. And later on, Jammeh decorated them. And so what I want to tell you is that you guys are measuring a state issue, you know, a state problem by law firm standard.
I don't think so. I disagree.
Listen to this. Look, you see, the reason why America is not interested in the ICC is because they know they had committed crimes. They know they had broken all laws in the field. Just recently, Australians have been shown in Afghanistan, you know, butchering civilians. And it became, but you see, all those
but that's a different situation.
Listen, when it comes to state level, there are crimes that sometimes what I would put in well,
I disagree. I disagree.
But if I'm going to punish, excuse me, I'm going to punish you know, like, as you said, the courts have to be, you know, given the jobs they deserve and all that. But at the end of the day, my brother, we are going to suffer. Let me bring an example. Quick. Oh, okay. You know, he just raised that flag. I just wanted to give an example. Right, go ahead.
Yeah, Conal, go ahead, please. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to give an example of recent. I was watching the TRRC last week, where you had this press conference by Fall about these Ghanaians. You know, that the Ghanaians, I think some Gambians together with Ghanaians are now pursuing the issue of justice for the Ghanaians who were killed. Okay, the Ghanaians, they were more than even Ghanaians. They were, I understand, other nationalities. But it's only Ghanaians we talk about. And what we also know is that, you know, the people who really talk about how these people were butchered were Malik Jatta, Oya, and 3 junglers who were arrested for a long time, about after 3 years, and asked to come and say what the TRRC expect them to say to go home. Those who came and say it didn't happen that way are still in jail. I don't know what kind of justice or what kind of
I think
legal is going to, finalize on this issue. But I have doubts over the approach.
But one thing that is not in doubt. One thing that is not in doubt is that it is factually true that these Ghanaians were killed.
Wait a minute. Listen to me. Yes. Wait a minute. I am telling you, yes, I want to accept that, yes, there were, but we listen to me, because the circumstances, because the real witnesses who could have given us real facts, not on the jurors, are the people, because I have been investigating all these days. I have been talking to senior officers about what happened that day, what happened that led to this. And I understand that, it was on the 22nd July 2005, when the Chief of Defense Staff, at that time, the head of the army, Sarr, together with Nur Cham, Fofana, who was the Marine at the Navy, and Manneh went and told Jammeh that we just captured some mercenaries from Senegal. Mercenaries. And you know what? By 2005, the country Gambia feared most was Senegal. Because in 1996, mercenaries attacked Gambia from Senegal. In 1997, soldiers who escaped from during the 11 November attacked Senegal. And we know that there was a time when even the Ablaye Wade government assembled Kukoy Sambasanya and some Gambians, and we are ready to fund them to come and attack the Gambia.
No, but the thing.
So anything that comes from Senegal, that these are mercenaries, would scare the hell out of this nation. But it could be called wrong intelligence, and these are, I understand, immigrants who were assembled in Dhaka by a conman who took their money and asked them to come to Gambia to wait for the vessel that will take them. And the SOP is, before you go to embark, they take all your credentials. They call identification cards, because they will tell you, if you arrive in Europe with your identification cards, they will deport you. So you surrender all that before you get into that boat. They will just to go.
But Colonel Sarr, if I may come in there, I think you are mixing up a number of things here, because let's be clear. When these Ghanaians were captured, they were no longer a threat. Even if at all, the story that was given was true, they were mercenaries. At the point that they were captured, they were no longer a threat to the Gambia. So the right thing to do, or the lawful thing to do, would have been for Jammeh to investigate and take them to court. So because Jammeh has taken the decision that yes, we have.
I agree.
That was criminal.
I don't know whether you read Colonel Callan. Colonel Callan, you read about him, right? Colonel Callan was a mercenary who left Europe in the 1970s to help the South African government fight the Cuban forces that were helping Angolan government. And they came a lot of mercenaries from Europe to help them fight.
One second, guys. Thank you, the Colonel retired and Mr. Sambou. I think we need to try and what I call conversational discipline. We need to move back. I think we're getting digressing too much into what happens with the Ghanaians. I mean, there is enough problem in the Gambia as it is. I mean, obviously the Ghanaians, they are also victims.
I was giving an example. Just give me one second. Because
give me one second. Colonel, give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second, please. Yes, give me 1 second. Colonel, I actually wanted to address what Mr. Sambou said prior to you coming in as well. I think Mr. Sambou and Colonel and our viewers, it's important to look at the whole Gambian Yaya Jammeh context. Look at the social fabric. I mean, the social fabric was absolutely broken in the 22 years of the Jammeh era. So, I mean, when it comes to morality, we try to judge just morality. It becomes it's very tricky. It's very tricky. So I don't want to go there because it becomes very philosophical question. But I think there's one thing no one can ever doubt, that what happened in the past 22 years in the Gambia, we need to look into it. And trying to what's it called, push it on the rug for convenience sake, that's not going to take us anywhere as a country and as a people. And I think Colonel Sarr gave us some historical narratives, you want to say, which you could say just some sort of justification for what Jammeh did.
No, it's not a justification. I think that would be an excuse.
Okay, excuse.
But whether the excuse is reasonable or not is a big question.
Yes,
but I don't think it's a justification.
If I can just continue on that thread for a minute, I think if you just said, what's it called? Jawara's government was so bad, they facilitated the coup. I think that's very tricky. I think a coup by any, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a soldier, but any military officers I speak to some ex-military officers in this country, by the way. If you have to go out of your way as a trained soldier, I think you guys have to swear an allegiance to the country. Just staging a coup, that's illegal. It doesn't matter what the justification is, it's absolutely illegal. And just to say that there are people in the country who are exuberant. I mean, I was a young man then, in England, screaming and shouting that it's no justification for what transpired in the
I said illegal.
One second. And it's no justification for not to seeking justice, not to finding out what happened. Really, I think it's very important. And then you mentioned Senegal, all the coup that happened in the Gambia happened in Senegal. It's just the geography of the Gambia. Unless you come by the Atlantic Ocean, anybody who has to come to Gambia have to come through Senegal.
Yes,
so
but
I don't think this. Just give me one second. One second. I think what we try to avoid, what is important to avoid, is conjecture. Conjecture is very important because you can have narratives, other people can have counter narratives. There are facts and there are counterfactuals. But if we can, set up bodies that can investigate this very thoroughly, very fairly, even if international bodies will have to help, I think that would help us move the Gambia forward than coming up with conjectures. I'm not accusing you, Colonel Sarr, by the way, but a lot of Gambians will say this, the Senegalese are involved in this. I'm not interested in that. I know how Gambians suffered at the hands of the Jammeh. But I want that to be redressed.
I am interested in that because there was a mess created that caused the creation of Yahya Jammeh. And we are repeating the same thing today.
I'm the host. I don't want to take two because I'm the host, so I need to try now. Okay, you go ahead then. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. You go ahead, Mr. Sambou. Go ahead.
Yes, what I was going to say was, I think the topic was we were discussing the victims. But what I noticed is I can see it's a very difficult area for Colonel Sarr. So he would always try to break, because it's very easy to attack the PPP. It's very easy because they are very low hanging fruit. So I can see Colonel Sarr is avoiding that subject, and he's going to what led to it.
No,
yes, clearly.
I'm telling you that the victims need to be compensated.
Yes.
And look at as soon as possible, because we are spending so much time trying to lynch Jammeh that the current problem we are faced with. The same.
Allow me to come in.
That created 1994, and
Just allow me to come in.
If you can just let Mr. Sambou, go ahead, please.
Yes, the point I am making is, I know we're kind of straying away from the topic a little bit, but there were points that were raised by Colonel Sarr, but I think it's important for me to respond to them. Because one, I think you mentioned the United States and Australia, what they've done in Afghanistan. But what we need to understand is those things were crimes that were committed in a war zone. Gambia was not a war zone. So Jammeh had all the power and Jammeh had all the might, and Jammeh was just using the power that he had at his as he sees fit or as he saw fit. And that is the difference. And in terms of, if we look at all the victims of Jammeh, all of them were victimized, or they were subjected to whatever it was that they went through at a time when they had no means to harm Jammeh or to harm anybody else. So I don't think Jammeh can really use the excuse of self-defense, or I did this because these people were bad people. Yes, they may have been bad people, I don't know, but they should have, the avenue was there for them to be taken to court. But Jammeh and other people that were helping him obviously decided that we were going to deliver justice as we see fit. So now that the day of reckoning has come, I think we have to hold them to account. I don't believe in I don't believe in lynching. I don't believe in lynching. But
I don't miss my thought there. The fact that Jammeh, like he said, Mr. Manneh said, that we are soldiers. We are supposed to be loyal to the state and make sure intervening in the civil dispensation of matters is out of our jurisdiction. You know, that is one thing that we should have respected day one. All soldiers, all of its good officers are not supposed to even think about coup d'etat. But Jammeh and the people who came together to organize the coup d'etat, which was very reckless, very irresponsible, broke all that. You know, from there, the fact that nobody challenged it and it continued gave him that belief that he could continue to run the state the way he sees it. And this is what military governments are.
Yes, but
as long as the people celebrate their seizure of power, they will continue using that force to run their administration until it is exhausted.
Okay, yes, but
too many people, you know, help the system continue as it is, and up to today.
Yes, that is very true. That's very true. But where we are,
you know, like everything was normal, mansolem, and we are back to that mentality. A king, we treat our youth as kings.
Yes,
and the tougher and more brutal you are, without thinking about consequence, the better king you are considered. You are taken to be. Like yes, now. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, correct. That may well be true, but now the point is what you are saying is, yes, things have happened in the past. Yes, things have happened in the past, but those things now need to be addressed, because the only way that we can stop those things happening again, and the only way that we can prevent another Jammeh emerging, is to make sure that another Jammeh is deterred from doing what Jammeh had done. And the only way to do that would be justice. Because justice would...
I disagree there. That, you know, punishing Jammeh, because you guys, justice is punishing Jammeh. And this is what I'm saying, that punishing these people will not deter it from... Look, the United Nations, the AU, the ECOWAS came together and decided that coup d'etat are forbidden. They are never to happen.
No, I am not referring to the coup d'etat. I am not referring to the coup d'etat.
Coup d'etat is what created Jammeh.
Not necessarily.
That's what important.
Yeah, correct. But
we are not looking at that because we are focused on Jammeh.
No. But the bottom line is,
this country, we depended on them, and in the end, they favored the status quo. And when the status quo couldn't handle it anymore, you know, things ruptured. Coup d'etat. Let's stop. How to stop coup d'etat?
No. I think that's a separate question. That's a separate question, because for now, let's not forget. There were other dictators other than Jammeh who came to power through democratic means. We can use Adolf Hitler as an example. Adolf Hitler did not do a coup d'etat to come to power. He came to power through democratic means. And I am sure if we look around the continent, there are lots. We can look at Uganda, for example. Museveni. Museveni did not come to power through a coup d'etat. But what we are talking about here is not the coup d'etat. The coup d'etat is a separate question. The coup d'etat is a separate question. The question here is what Jammeh did when he was in power.
Adolf Hitler started the Gestapo.
Yes, but let me learn. Yes, but
guys, hold on, guys. Hold on.
The democratic process, just like Museveni was a military personnel who came at a time when Uganda was deviating also and used force, to some extent to establish what we have today and continue. I know what you're talking about.
Yes, but the accountability, but Jammeh's accountability.
Sorry, guys. Sorry, Colonel. Sorry. Guys, and there's so many parallels in the world, both historical, contemporary. If we want to look at all of them, we'll actually we're not going to discuss what we come to discuss here today. Yeah. So let's go back. Let's not digress too much. I mean, it's sometimes we cannot avoid this. We have, because there's so many things interlinked. But I just want to address Mr. Colonel Sarr's fear that Jammeh is going to be lynched. Why do you have this fear? I don't think it's genuine. I think Jammeh will come. Jammeh will be given what's it called? The right and privileges and the human respect, dignity, Jammeh denied other people. People will give Jammeh this because the whole world will be watching us. So it's not going to be like no, yes. So it's not going to be like yes. Sorry, one second. It's not going to be like yes. One second. It's not like anybody's going to hold Jammeh the moment his flight arrives in the Gambia. They grab him. We've lost our impact. They're going to grab him and they take it to what they call to Bakau Stadium and shoot him. No, that's not going to happen. There's going to be due process. And this due process that Jammeh never gave the people, that's the due process people are going to give him. And it's important. One second. It's important for Gambians to go through this process. Because like I said, the whole Gambian social fabric was broken in 22 years. It's completely broken, the social fabric. We need to rebuild this. And we need to rebuild this by having justice. And people need to see this justice. It's important we see this. Yeah? We can never move away from this. Because otherwise the Gambia will never move. There are going to be so many angry people there. It's not about a lynch mob. Yeah? It's not like just retributive justice like Mr. Sambou keep on saying. It might be criminal, it might be civil, but we need to have this day. I need to have this day with Gambian people. Hiding away in the Equatorial Guinea is not the answer. And doing comparisons and parallels here and there too is not the answer. The Gambians need to move on. We need to turn a new page, and we cannot do it until we address the 22 years of dictatorship, the 22 years of untolerable damage that our people live under. We can never move away from this. Jammeh need to come to this and be answered. It needs to be held.
Can I interject there, please?
Yes, certainly.
Okay, I can see you one of those, I can now size up your thinking process about Jammeh, that you really want to give. But you know what I'm saying? I am saying they want him lynched. If you listen to Kijera, you listen to Batambe, he said the day Jammeh stepped his foot at the airport, he's going to take him to Mines too. And he was cheered for saying that making that statement. And you're talking about we're going to give him, a day in the courts. Most people, I don't think so. The day Jammeh stepped his foot at the airport, I think there's going to be a big crisis beyond what we can control even. Because there would be people who will hate to see him treated unfairly or badly, and others who want to see him. The country is divided about Jammeh. There are people who represented their sentiments, their beliefs, and their emotions. They think he represented a lot about the underprivileged, the downtrodden, and all those places that most of those who suffered under Jammeh, which I don't agree with. There are people like, if you listen to this Bojang, Jammeh was just a survivor, like a military leader surviving. When they are in power, they use any means to stay in power. And, military regimes were here and were acceptable. Their days are gone. I think we solved the problem of Jammeh the day he got out of power.
No, I don't agree.
The next thing would have been to forge ahead and see how we are going to build from where we stop. Because you know what? When I hate to give parallels because you guys don't want to hear that. 2008 financial crisis during George Bush's days.
Yeah.
You know, and Obama came and won. Thank God it happened. Otherwise, I doubt as to whether he would have been a president. There were millions of Americans who were so angry with George Bush because of the false information he used to invade Iraq, that they wanted him prosecuted. You know, because they said thousands of Americans have died. Marines at that time, 22 were killing themselves every day out of PTSD.
But that was a different question.
They wanted George Bush to be prosecuted. But Obama said, I have other things. I have a financial crisis. Let's forge ahead and we take care of that later. Now, I just had an interview with Joe Biden. What are you going to do with Trump? Because Trump was criminal, this, that, and that. He said, I have other things to take care of than to waste my time with Trump.
No, but Colonel Sarr, I think
Gambia.
No, but I think with all due respect,
we have serious things on the ground that we should have taken care of when Jammeh left. But we want to just focus so much on Jammeh. We are missing our problems now.
If you allow me to come in there, I think
Mr. Sambou, go ahead.
If you allow me to come in there, I do not think George Bush has broken the law to the extent that American citizens have been subjected to human rights abuses to the same level that Gambians have been under Yahya Jammeh. I don't think the two are the same.
But when you
they are completely different.
How many? You know how many thousands of Americans die out of that?
Hold on. Just
allow me to finish. Just allow me to finish. But what we are saying here is justice for people who are victims. So I think we should not really be. I acknowledge the comment or the thing, the issue that you raised about how lots of people feel that Jammeh is their champion and how other people equally hate him and want him lynched. I completely understand that. But the point here is the feelings of Jammeh and the feelings of Jammeh supporters should not take priority over the justice that the victim deserve. So personally, I think the feelings of Jammeh should come last, because Jammeh is the culprit. Jammeh is not a victim. I know a lot of people would disagree that Jammeh was not criminally culpable because Jammeh was not actually the one that was committing these crimes. But overall, regardless of whether he was directly involved or not, but overall, it was under his presidency that these people were victimized, and he did not take any steps to address it. Now that he's no longer in power, these people want justice. And the proper way to deliver justice is, one, these victims have got to be restored. And in addition to that, the individuals that are responsible, Jammeh being one of them, should be held to account. They should have their day in court. I am not saying they should be lynched. That's not what I am saying at all.
No,
hang on. Just allow me to land. Just allow me to land. I am not saying that Jammeh should be lynched. I don't believe in lynching, and I do not believe in jungle justice, and I do not believe in the death penalty.
I'm just saying it that way, but I don't mean definitely.
Well, some people may want to.
My point is, listen.
But just allow me to finish.
You were saying Jammeh's victims.
Yeah, just allow me to finish. Just allow me to finish. Because I think we've spent a lot of time talking about other issues and not focusing about the victims. I want to focus on the victims. Victims now, because what I am saying is the people that are in the best position to decide what should happen to Jammeh and how justice should be pursued should be the victims, and it should not be Jammeh, and it should not be.
Again. You said repeat that.
The people that should be deciding what Jammeh's fate should be and how justice is supposed to be delivered is the victims themselves, because they should be everything, in my view, should be victim led. But unfortunately, when Bartambedu took over, Bartambedu was more or less, he made himself front and center, but clearly he had other other things in mind, and he has since achieved what he wanted, and he has moved on, and he has just left an almighty mess at home. But personally, what I think should happen right now is the TRRC Act. It should be looked into to ensure that, but President Barrow or whoever is the president at the time that the TRRC delivers their recommendation, which is most likely going to be Barrow, because from what I understand, it's going to be July next year.
2021.
The TRRC Act should be amended so that Barrow will be legally mandated to, within a set period of time, to start implementing the recommendations, and in full. It should not be cherry picked. It has to be recommended. It has to be implemented in full. And part of that has to include, for a start, in my view, they have to start with reparation, because the victims cannot wait for so long for them to be restored. They have to start with reparation. They have to restore the victims, restore their dignity, and ensure that whilst they are pursuing other action against Jammeh and others, the victims would not carry on suffering. So once they restore the victims, then the issue of how we are going to hold Jammeh and others criminally liable can come in. And in my view, I think all this can be done in the Gambia.
Can I come in, please?
1 second. If I may jump in, Colonel, please. I know. Probably sometimes we're speaking figuratively that Jammeh will be lynched, and then probably you mean literally as well. And there are people in the Gambia who literally would like the man lynched. I have no doubt about that, and I don't discount it. But I have a very strong conviction that wouldn't happen. So why do I have that conviction? Look at the guys at the junglers in the Gambia, and nobody's killed them. I know Jammeh is their head. Jammeh is sick. Jammeh is leader. Sorry, 1 second. Just 1 second. Yeah. I mean, you can say Jammeh is a bit extreme because he was the president, but I am very convinced if Jammeh comes to the Gambia, there's going to be no lynch mob for him. Really, wouldn't be. But it's important. We speak, the victims seek justice. It's important. I have this fear, and even with the TRRC, and maybe this fear is unfounded. Maybe I'm just being paranoid. But we got this Gambian thing of let's discuss things and move on. I see that a lot. Because I was in the Gambia last year, Mr. Sambou, I told you this, when this guy, Edward, came. You would not believe that the craziness I saw in the Gambia, really. I see people on the street, actually, they're happy, screaming that Edward is back home, and this guy, they thought he spoke better English than Fall, because they went into this, it was shocking to me. Yeah. Maybe because I was so conditioned, been living abroad for so long, I left the Gambia when I was young, and I look back, I'm like, are my people well? Really? Does it really have to be reduced to this? Who speak better English between Edward and this guy? So Edward is like a hero to them. So that's why I think for a whole lot of people, Edward's like a hero. So that's why if you can use Edward as an example, you can use some of these junglers and other people. Even what's the other guy's name? Kijera. No, sorry, it's not Kijera. Kijera passed away. The guy who's in Germany, Sabali. You see the spectacle that happened in there. Yeah. The people are saying, the two of them are, they're making peace. Yes. I mean, these are two of the most brutal people Gambians I've ever seen. So that's my worry more than anything else. My worry will be, Jammeh will get to Gambia, there'll be no justice. They're gonna say, oh, we all one family, let's move on. So your fear of being lynched is directly proportionally opposite to what my thinking is. I think Jammeh could actually get to Gambia and he will go scot-free. So you see how extreme our views and our convictions are about the Jammeh. So it's important Jammeh goes to the Gambia. We have to go through this process because the Gambia need to go through a healing process. Like I keep on saying, it's like 22 years where our social fabric is completely broken. We have to rebuild this fabric.
That's where I disagree with you. To some people, within these 22 years, Jammeh did some tremendous thing for this country. If you come into the country, and that's what I have realized. To you, he was a destroyer. To many, he was a constructive builder. To be honest with you, that's what I'm saying. I saw a statement by one lawyer today. He said, there is a difference between coupists and liberation fighters. He was talking about those who came in 13 and in December 2014 to organize the coup that failed as liberation fighters compared to Yahya Jammeh, who probably organized a coup.
Yeah, so if I may chip in there, please. Those are personal opinions.
No,
so
no, this, I'm just talking about, I'm just telling you how
related.
Yes.
One second, I don't want to interrupt. I don't want to interrupt you.
How relative our deductions are about situations during the Cold War to the Westerner. Anybody who supported ideals of Marxists was a terrorist, and likewise, vice versa from the Soviets. Anybody who supported Western values was a terrorist, and that is why America felt that the Mujahideen at that time were liberation fighters, while the Russians called them terrorists. So you are talking about victims now. There are a lot of people who think those you might identify as victims were actually villains who failed in their attempt to kill Jammeh or overthrow his government.
Okay.
All right. 1994, 11 November, he quoted that incident. That was a counter coup. In the process, those who counter coup were killed.
But they were not killed in the process. They were not killed in the process.
Sorry.
They were not killed in the process.
When you are found conspiring to organize a coup, they take you to a district court martial.
Okay. Colonel, let me just chip in here. Let me chip in. Okay. Let me chip in. I think the examples you are giving are very extreme. We're not dealing with soldiers, coupists, or somebody who thinks that the attempted coup is justified. I'm talking about the students that got murdered. They are not soldiers. I'm talking about solo Sandings and others. They're not soldiers. Yeah? Those people are victims. Their families are. Just one second, please. Just give me 1 second. Give me 1 second, please. Yeah. So the examples you are giving, those are very extreme. I am not a lawyer. I'm not legally trained. So this is where it's important we have Mr. Sambou here. So I think we need to have through whole process. Yeah. This through the reconciliation you want to call TRRC, it needs to go to they need to be given a more mandate maybe. The mandate needs to be expanded. But these victims, they need to find justice. They need to find justice, and they need to be given. They need to achieve this justice. It's important. Yeah. Yahya Jammeh, the lynch mob, I really don't believe Yahya Jammeh is going to be lynched in the Gambia. I don't believe that at all.
Okay, because you have given me two examples. You have given me two.
Give me one. Just me 1 second. We're going to let Mr. Sambou in now because he's been on the sideline for a little bit now. Mr. Sambou, sorry. The two of us have just monopolized the conversation for the past 10 minutes.
Yes, I'll just come back to the subject again with the victims because I think the TRRC really, I'm not sure whose idea it was for them to organize a session whereby they're going to have that show, that really awkward show of two of the most brutal villains of the Jammeh victims, of the Jammeh era, to reconcile in the limelight of the cameras. I think that was a very, very big mistake. That sent the complete wrong signal to everybody else because clearly those two individuals should be held to account. They should not really be because when the TRRC says, I personally do not agree with the word reconciliation because I think what it should have been, through Justice and Reparations Commission. I don't agree with reconciliation. But now that they have reconciliation there's nothing that we can do about that. But that reconciliation should be focused on the victims and not villains. And also there's a slight problem with the use of the word reconciliation because it suggests or it implies that that there is something that both sides need to reconcile. There's nothing to reconcile. What exists, what should be done is justice. There's nothing to reconcile because I know that, Batambedu and his lazy thinking and how he does his things, he just copies and pastes. And unfortunately, that's why we are in this mess. And that is why the victims have been actually given a raw deal. Because Batambedu tries to copy what was done in Rwanda and what was done in Sierra Leone. Because what we have to look at is the situation in the Gambia is completely unique and completely different from what happened in South Africa, what happened in Sierra Leone, and what happened in Rwanda. Because in Rwanda and even in South Africa and also in Sierra Leone, there were culprits and victims on both sides. So because there were culprits and victims on both sides, it was mutually beneficial for there to be a component of reconciliation so that both sides can benefit from that. That would more or less narrow down the issues to address. But in the case of the Gambia, we don't have that. What we have is somebody with the whip hand and a lynch mob on one side, and we had the victims on the other side. So the idea that the victims are supposed to be reconciled with their abusers, I find that completely absurd. It should not even exist. It should not even exist at all.
Can I come in?
And just let me finish. Just 1 second. And my concern with the structure of the TRRC, and again, I emphasize this point. This is not a criticism of the TRRC, because the TRRC is only doing what the National Assembly through the TRRC Act has allowed them to do. They can only operate within the boundaries of the law and within the boundaries of their terms of reference. So this is not a criticism to them at all. But what I have noticed is, if at all you look at their interim report, which I think was published in April, this year, because what you notice there is they have certain committees. They have a committee that deals with human rights abuses. They have a committee that deals with reparations. They have a committee that deals with reconciliation and amnesty. And they have another committee that deals with gender-based violence and sexual abuse. But what is missing there, they don't have any committee that deals with justice. And for me, this is my concern. What I think is going to happen is, at the end of this, that justice element is going to be completely missing, and I think that will not solve the problem. It will just exacerbate issues, unfortunately.
Okay.
Colonel, one second. We'd like to make it interactive. We got some people been commenting, but anyway, I'll probably go through them. This is one Mr. Mbenga. Did he say the guy that did the actual killing for Jammeh, by the way, don't know what's going on. By the way, confessed to mayhem. All right. Anyway, I think you was trying to say that who confessed they're actually walking free. No harm is happening to them, like I was saying, junglers. I don't know what's happening.
The junglers, listen, okay, coming to that answer. To answer that question is that the junglers, I said, I still have a big question mark over the sincerity, their sincerity when they were confessing. Because these are guys from day one, immediately after the removal of Jammeh, were rounded up and taken to mile 2. No charges, no access to lawyers, nothing. And locked them up for 3 years. And then one fine day, they call them and say, your freedom depends on what you're coming to tell us at the TRRC. How they choreograph what they are to say to the TRRC is not very clear to me, because some came and said, yes, this is what happened. This is how we did it. We killed this way, and they went home. The others who came and said, we did not do it like that. It never happened that way. They locked them back up. So, that's a situation that I am still questioning the validity of that. Having said that, you brought me 2 incidents, like the April 2000 massacre of the shooting of the students. I was the first who wrote at that time that the government claimed that blank ammunitions were used, that there were the rioters went to police stations and took weapons and shot at people and they shoot them. I think it was I said who said that. I was the first to say that I was in the Gambia. That is not true. That the Gambia at that time did not have any riot control gears. Most of the riot control gears we had were owned by the Senegalese, and they took them away after the end of the Confederation. And then, but because of the military structure at that time, and even it is affecting the Gambia up to this day, you go to stadiums, you go to parades, you go to dancing halls. Guards they stand there are still armed with AK-47.
Yeah.
Why the Faraba Banta issue came. So police officers, instead of to take care of what they were afraid to be of civilians disobeying law, you gave them AK-47, and they have to use it when they are cornered. In 2000, the situation ruptured to where it was out of hand. In fact, I understand even some soldiers were being chased by demonstrators in the streets, burning tires. It could have ended the regime. And
No.
Because, excuse me, because they had nothing to use.
I don't think the regime was under threat. I don't think the regime was under threat at all.
It was. You know what? The urban area is very important in holding a regime intact or destabilizing. But most of the intifadas, I'm not even talking about intifada, the Arab Spring, all more or less happened in the cities.
No, but those are different issues. Those are different issues.
No, I'm talking about in Burkina Faso. It was the city. You know, these cities are very important. Gambia, the government and everything is centered around Banjul and Serekunda. If you disrupt,
I disagree.
So they and they had nothing to use but the weapons they had. After that, listen to me. After that, the government tried to cover it up. And they even went to apologize. I understand they went to the families and even tried to compensate them and apologize. That is why when I heard about, when in 2000, the Solo Sandeng incident, I'm going to kill two birds with one stone.
That's fine.
The Solo Sandeng incident, I was aware of the activists in the West, especially America, raising funds towards funding any group or any dissidents ready to disrupt the nation, you know, through civil disobedience. Talen Punui. I remember even OJ, I spoke to him because they even talked to them. Duga was saying that if they don't do it, they were coming to Gambia to do it. That all they needed was to come out in the streets, civil disobedience, and the government will come down. Just like,
yeah, but
okay.
Yes,
I'm not finished yet. And it continued like that. They talked to Ahmad Ba. I hear him go to the streets. He said no. I told OJ, ask him. He came to America. I said, don't ever go to the streets. Gambia, they do not have riot gears. If you go out, they're going to use AK-47, and the same situation, the disaster that happened in 2000 could happen. He told me he's not going to be part of it. And it was later, from what I understand, that Solo Sandeng was consulted. And he said he could do it. And they raised funds and sent it to him.
No.
For a demonstration.
Okay. Sorry. I might have to interject here a little bit because we're running out of time. I think that's my concern with conjecture, because that's why it's important we have these commissions. I don't mean the useless commissions we have in the Gambia, by the way, toothless commissions. At least this conjecture of like, oh, somebody raised funds. If we can have two commissions, we can actually establish that. But otherwise, all we have is just conjecture.
Religiously, I was following that religiously in America.
Yeah. Just give me 1 second.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that you mentioned that Yeah, sorry, 1 second. You mentioned that the soldiers only had AK-47, they didn't have riot gear, and then the problem happened in Serekunda and Banjul. But there are people who were killed outside of those areas. There are people who were killed. The students that were killed, who were killed in what's it called, in the if you want to call it Upper Gambia, in the rural areas. Ms. Soldeng actually just reminded us. He said some kids were killed in Esau and others were killed in Brikama.
I didn't hear about.
You didn't hear about those. Okay, I mean that's actually beside the point. By the way, I don't want to belittle that, but the fact that the soldiers can take it upon themselves to use AK-47 live bullets on students, I think that's an international crime.
They're still doing that today.
Yeah, just one. No, yes.
In Paraba, they're still using because they
That's
don't have.
all the more reason. That's all the more reason that Gambians need to have a reckoning of 24, 22 years of Jammeh, so that because the culture, it all goes back to this social fabric that is broken. This culture of violence that becomes so, it's just permeated the whole Gambian, what's it called, society. Violence become violence. Yeah. Violence became a norm. It is still a thing, like you keep on saying. It's still happening today, like you keep on saying. Because why? Because there's no justice yet.
No, this is how African governments run.
Okay, we want to. No.
Of Ivory Coast.
One second. Give me 1 second. Those are very convenient excuses. We want to move away from them.
India, they are all shooting. These are governments. These are governments too, my friend. African governments.
Give me 1 second, please. I think those are very dangerous with arguments of convenience, and we would like to move away from them.
These are realities.
Yeah, but we can make a difference. That's the whole essence.
We all want to make a difference. We thought who would have thought if Trump will appear in America disputing their elections and coming out.
No. We're gonna move America to one side. We just not come back to the victims in the Gambia right now.
But this is I'm talking about government. This is how governments. You're talking about you are measuring governments by law firms.
Okay. Sorry, I don't mean to interject. As a host, I really don't feel like I should be interjecting so often. But you really have to forgive me, because that's some of the points you're making. I mean, they just with the utmost respect, they're so outrageous. I really can't help myself but interject. But anyway, Mr. Sambou, if you can go ahead, please.
Yes, I think Colonel Sarr raised a very important or a very interesting issue there about the junglers. Still coming back to the victims, that was something that was messed up by the same Batamberu. I don't know whether Jammeh, whether he has a secret deal with Jammeh. I don't know because I don't know because everything that Batamberu had done from day one up to the point that Batambedu left was to undermine the interest of the victims, because I don't think Batambedu has done anything that advances the interest of the victims. If not, make it much more difficult for the TRRC to get to the bottom of things and for the victims to get justice. And it makes it very easy for Jammeh to get away, because the issue that Colonel Sarr raised there, I have to agree with him. Not fully. But I have to agree that there's a problem there. Mm. If at all you have unlawfully arrested somebody and keep them under custody unlawfully, and then attach a condition of release, release quote unquote, because the apprehension was not lawful, the detention was not lawful, and attach a condition for their release that they have to appear before the TRRC and tell the truth, then clearly that truth would be very questionable. I completely agree with that. Mm. And this is a problem that was created by Batambedu, because it allows these witnesses or these junglers at a later date in the future, when it is convenient, for them to turn around and say, oh, we only said what they wanted us to say so that we can be free. And that's the problem. Because the thing is, before the junglers were brought to the TRRC, they actually gave cautionary statements. These were different statements to the ones that were given to the TRRC. And in their cautionary statements, they have admitted to some of the crimes that they have committed. Even if they have admitted one, that was enough. Personally, what I think should have happened was somebody has admitted to murder and other serious offenses. What should have happened was you have an admission, take them to court, cut a guilty plea with them, let them plead guilty. You can delay the sentence until after the TRRC. Cut a deal with them. Let them plead guilty. Delay the sentence. Keep them in custody, and then they can come and testify. Because then that way you are not going to taint the evidence that these people are going to give. But to hold somebody in custody unlawfully and then compel them to appear before the TRRC and tell the truth and then release them, I think that undermines. I don't think that they have lied or I do not believe, unlike Connector, I do not believe that these people have said or have admitted things that they have not done just because they want to be released. I don't believe that. I don't believe that.
I believe
Clearly,
that.
maybe I do not. Okay, let me put it this way, because I do not know. But let me put it this way: I do not have a reason to believe that they would do that, because clearly they have given cautionary statements before they came to the TRRC, and in those statements they have admitted to crimes that they have committed. And when they came to the TRRC, or before they came to the TRRC, they also provided statements which, as we can see, they've also admitted to the same thing. So I don't think that problem exists. But what Batambedo has done is Batambedo has allowed these people a corridor or an opportunity for them to say we were forced, or we were compelled, or we were under duress to say X, Y, and Z, and which is a problem. Which is why personally I am not a conspiracy theorist at all, but from what I can see, everything that Batambedo has done, right from the TRRC up all the way to everything else before he left, was just to undermine the interests of the victims, unfortunately.
Yeah, Sarr, if I can just jump in there, just to buttress, well, not to buttress really, but just to make on some points on the back of what Mr. Sambou just said. I mean, you legally trained, so your insight, your analysis of the whole TRC process is going to be completely different to mine. I'm coming from the social angle. Coming from our Gambian, this culture of like, everything is done, we all one family, let's move on. For me, that's my biggest fear with the TRRC. Yeah, there's not going to be no justice. It's going to be, oh, we all one family, this is happened, let's move on. Like I keep on saying, reconciliation. But it's no reconciliation because there's not like two parties here, like two armed parties. Then you can reconcile. There was not. There was a state machinery brutalizing people and killing people, maiming people. So you cannot reconcile with that. But that's my major concern with the TRRC process. But like I said, obviously I'm not legally trained. So some of the insight you have as a trained lawyer, I lack it. But yeah, I mean, if I'm going by the example I saw with this when I was in the Gambia last October, November, when Edward was there, and then what's he called, Sabali, and the spectacle I saw in the TRRC, these guys hugging each other and then people praying for them, it was outrageous. Really, it's really outrageous to me. Yeah, so for me, that's my major fear. That's my major fear. That's what's going to happen. These people they're not going to have any justice. That's why I think it's important. International, not even Senegal, or if they even have to bypass the whole Gambia, go to ECOWAS, but an avenue be open for victims to seek justice. I think that's very, very important. That's why we thought this conversation is all about anyway, that there's no political will in the Gambia, or even if the political will is there, there might not even the suitable mechanisms for victims to seek redress, for victims to seek justice. So how can we move somewhere else? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree totally with you there. But what I am saying is, like, the TRRC, as much as it should have been the platform to, really go into this, for Gambians to understand exactly what's going on from a very fair point of view. They missed that completely. Because at the end of the day, I think it was really corrupted, the TRRC, in that the way they treated, all right, let's take for it, because I want to give you examples of where they really screwed up. Let's say the Ghanaians issue. The Ghanaians, these Ghanaians, we don't still know who were among these so-called Ghanaians, because they were, I understand, 56 and 44 were Ghanaians. We don't know the rest of the other nationalities, who they were. But what I understand is that when these senior officers in the army who are still serving, some are diplomats, who actively took part in going to collect these from the Navy, collect these migrants and ship them to Banjul and start distributing them to different police stations. That included, all right, of course, Marina is there, Nurcham is there, but Sarr was there, Fofana was there, and they gave me other names of officers who really took part. Before you bring the junglers, you gotta start from those people to understand, how did this happen? Now, 2 days ago, not a few days ago, Permendi came to talk about the day they executed Alma Momani and brought him at Yundum Barracks. And they told him to bury. He said, Babukar Keïta and the now National Security Advisor, Mamadou Badji, told him to bury the guy. Don't give him to their families. Just bury him. And he went and said, I'm not a Muslim. I don't even know how to bury. He said, just do it. You know, they don't want to talk about these people. They will never call the National Security Advisor now, advising Barrow on how to reform the security sector, on his role in screwing up the system in the past 22 years. He is a hero reforming the system. So these are things that really put a serious doubt in the sincerity or the genuineness of the whole process. I don't think we're going to go anywhere. That's why I say we have wasted so much time in things that could have been treated differently from the way they have approached it. Mr. Sambou, you know, has talked about how Batembedu. It's not only Batembedu. You go to even Safal. You know, all those people, the way they approached this was wrong. There are so many things that they screwed up that, you know, to implement it is going to be challenged by a lot of people. That's what I believe. I may be wrong, but that's what I believe. But there are so many handicaps there that we are not treating fairly. People here.
But one thing, yes, just quickly.
Yeah, we got about. Yeah, no, we got about 10 minutes. I was gonna say, yeah, we got 10 minutes. So, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, just quickly. One thing I wanted to add in there. Okay, the reason why I am sparing or I am focusing my criticism on Batambedu and the government and the National Assembly and not the TRRC is because the TRRC they are not really in charge of, or they don't have any control over what it is that they can and cannot do. All the TRRC has to do is to deliver the will of the National Assembly through the Act. And unfortunately, if at all, because the Act, in my view, I don't think the Act was well thought through. I think it was rushed, and the National Assembly they did not do their job to scrutinize it properly. So the TRRC as an institution, I think they've been given a hospital pass, and the victims, unfortunately, I think they've been sold down the river. So which is why I have a lot of sympathy for the TRRC. I mean the body itself. Yes, I do. I have a lot of sympathy for them and a lot of sympathy for the victims, because what they have been given to the job that they have been given a job, but they have not been equipped enough, and they have not been given enough time, and the framework, which is the act itself, that that they have to work within. I think there are lots of problems with it, which is why I have a lot of sympathy for the TRRC. I think they have a very difficult job, which they have to do within a very short period of time, and there are lots of difficulties, of course. So, which is why I think, for me, really, all the blame should be to the government, Batambedu himself, who was in charge, and the National Assembly.
And the TRRC, because the TRRC, to me, I'm not a lawyer, I don't know any, but it looks like a court to me, where, you know, like it's like a prosecutor and a defender who is not given any legal assistance, you know, because I mean, like, I think the way they grill certain people, telling them how they are lying, how they are criminals, how they help this, that, they should have even given them somebody who is legally tuned up, like I'll tell them to make it look more reasonable to me than what he is today. Because some of them don't even know the language he is speaking. And he just, you know, castigate them. They lose all their confidence and so on. Some are afraid even to talk or to reason when they sit before, intimidate them. So, you know, I think it looks like a court with only a heavyweight prosecutor against a low IQ, you know, victim or so defendant with no legal assistance. No, that's why I don't take them seriously. Definitely.
Yeah, But he is just following the instructions of the National Assembly through the Act. So that's what I'm saying. The TRRC don't really have a choice as to the design of the Act and what their mandate is and what their terms of reference are. That's something that was said by somebody and given to them.
Yeah, you see the Ghanaian TRC, where, people come and discuss. And, I think there are incidents where people should have discussed. Like in the case of when they brought Mama Cham before the TRRC, the current deputy chief of staff, to talk about blatant lies about even me. They could have brought me to sit down or the day after to respond to what he said, to clear it, but it stopped. He was lying all over, and it stopped. It's a witness. It's going to be part of the recommendation. And so many of them, they have come and lied, and it is all part of the records, and it's going to influence the final decision. And there is nobody to challenge their lies, especially those whom they have directly accused of doing this or that. Because Mama Cham in Mile 2 told us categorically, my colleagues who went there, I was surprised that nobody called him out and said, what Mama Cham said here, that he was not part of the coup in 1994 is a lie. Because he told us at Mile 2 that he was part of it. The reason why he pulled out is because when it came to the decision of organizing the government, it was not going to be based on seniority. That is why he pulled out of the coup d'etat and what these boys, continue their conspiracy. That guy should have been, he is more treasonous than even the boys, because he was a senior officer and these were junior officers. The day they tasked Sana Sabali, whether Samsudin Sarr knew about it, he said he was the last person I will tell that, and they laughed. Yeah, he will not tell Samsudin Sarr, because they know that junior officers, if a junior officer came to me and told me that there is a coup, I will stop them that day, and or I will make sure I will never be part of it. I will never be part of it. I will stop them. You don't know that. That's why they did not, tell me. So many things went wrong. Anyway.
Thank you, Colonel. We got about, if you can just make, we start with Mr. Sambou. If you can just make your closing statements, and then obviously we go to Colonel for closing statements. I think it's been very wonderful. It's been productive. Like we said, we're not here to basically, browbeat anybody. So it's all about national conversations. So sometimes it might get heated up, but I think this has been very civil, and I think it's also been very respectful mutually from everybody here. And as a host, I think I interjected so often too many times, unfortunately, but that's the way it goes. Mr. Sambou, if you would like to make your concluding statements, please.
Yeah. I think it would have been really helpful if we had somebody from the victim center, but unfortunately, the person that was supposed to come didn't come. But I hope that any of the victims that is watching this would take one thing from this, that Batamberu has not done anything that has helped your case, and the TRRC Act that has been designed supposedly to bring Jammeh to justice or to establish all the facts. Yes, it has been designed to establish the facts, and yes, it may establish some of the key facts or some of the key issues. But what is missing from there is, one, the justice element is missing, and secondly, there is no, the Act does not legally mandate the government to implement the recommendations of the TRRC in full. So, like we have seen in the with the Jammeh Commission, the TRRC, any recommendation from the TRRC may end up being watered down by the government, and they may, after all, not implement in the end the wishes of the victims in accordance with the recommendations that were made by the TRRC. So, if there's anybody that's watching this, whether they are a victim or whether they are an interested Gambian, or whether they're somebody who could actually do something about this, what they should really be looking at is they should be looking at getting in touch with the National Assembly members to apply pressure on them, and including the current Justice Minister, who comes across as a very reasonable person, unlike Batamberu, I have to say, and hopefully and apply some pressure to make sure that the problems with the Act are addressed, because it has to legally mandate the government to implement the recommendations of the TRRC, and it has to set a time frame within which the recommendations have to be implemented. Because otherwise, if that doesn't happen, what is going to end up happening is in July, the TRRC would hand in their recommendations to Adama Barrow, and what may end up happening there is all Adama Barrow will use the recommendations for is to try and use it to blackmail Jammeh and the APRC into joining the NPP. Yes, because Adama Barrow will have a discretion as to whether he implements the TRRC recommendations or not. And even if he's going to implement any part of them, Adama Barrow will have discretion as to, Adama Barrow can cherry pick what can be implemented or what he wants to implement and what he doesn't want to implement, like he has done with the Jammeh Commission. So we have to make sure that the mistake that happened or the error that was done with the Jammeh Commission does not happen to the victims of the TRRC, which is why I am emphasizing again that the law has to be changed, the TRRC Act has to be amended so that it legally mandates the government of the day to implement the recommendations within a set period. Otherwise, Adama Barrow is just going to use it to his advantage to blackmail the APRC to blackmail the APRC into joining the NPP. And once Adama Barrow wins re-election, the victims can forget about Adama Barrow ever implementing the recommendations of the TRRC, because all we can see from him is obviously he's not somebody who keeps his word. And I think there's enough evidence out there already. I don't even need to go into that. People should have found out for themselves now that Barrow is not somebody who keeps his word. And the victims and those that are representing the victims, especially the victim center, they have to be very firm on this, and they have to ensure that the law is changed to the interests of the victims, to reflect what the victims' wishes are, and not what the convenience of Barrow, the government, or anybody else is.
Okay, thank you so much. Colonel, if you would like to make your closing statements, please.
Yes, Mr. Manneh, sorry, at one point I lost you with signal.
Yes.
So I had to go back.
If I can just make a little joke there, I think we made a lot of progress compared to last week. At least you were able to join us. Last week you couldn't, so there you go.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, like, it was a great show. I think I'll probably call Sambou and we continue again for the rest of the night. You know, I'm just kidding.
We continue after we go off live broadcast. Yes. We can continue the conversation in the studio.
Yes, he has made some good points, but the political establishment, especially the executive, is critical in whatever we might agree upon on how to forge ahead. Yes. You know, and Mr. Sambou is talking about his fears of Barrow not implementing whatever the TRRC may recommend. To me, you know, like, there is so much question, there is so much doubt over what the TRRC has been doing, that I don't think their recommendation is going to be that much attractive for the government just to embrace it passionately and say, yeah, let's execute it. Mm-hmm. Just like what we saw after 2017 or after the Jammeh Commission. The Jammeh Commission made some recommendations, you know, and it affected people who are still in the system, and they don't want to deal with them because of the interests of the executive. You know, the executive, they will always protect their interests, and I don't blame them. You don't control a government and look at and know that if I do this, it might hurt my administration or undermine my system or whatever. So, I mean, like, that's how things work. All governments around the world, you look at your interests. It might go against what is right, but you hold on to it to survive. It's survival. You know, I was just talking to a friend today about this Lamin Bo Baji, who was at the TRRC yesterday. I don't know whether you saw his testimony. And this guy, he really touched my heart. I know him. He was in my platoon. We worked together. Very good gentleman. He was an officer. He was once at the NIA. But you listen to this guy, you know he is very genuine. He is very, he is human. He was not those officers who would execute illegal orders only to keep his job. You know, mistakes were committed under his command. Nevertheless, he tried everything possible within his means to change the dynamics at the NIA. But he ended up being a victim. And he suffered seriously before he left the country, like many people who could not cope with the system and live in Dhaka until the changes came. After the changes, he returned to the Gambia. And what happened? His colleagues who were found guilty of actually trying to organize coup d'etats and were together with him in jail were reinstated. And they did not even give him, a regular dismissal letter or anything. They just asked him, go home and stay at home.
Okay.
He still cannot process why his colleagues were reinstated and no justification other than probably tribal sentiment, But what I doubt, what I said in my comment was that I think Omar Faye, Sir Omar Faye, and Mamadou Badji, his blood brother, should have intervened on his behalf and say, look, why do you treat this guy like this? And treat the others differently. If you can reinstate X, Y, and Z, who actually organized coup d'etats and were locked up, he never did. He was also a victim. But they did not, because they are protecting their jobs. That's all. So this mindset has to change. But governments, as you know, they will protect themselves regardless of what. What interests them is what will take me to another term. If this continues, if the continuation of this to say victims is going to hurt them, I would not blame them if they try to solve it and find a way. And this idea of if we don't punish the perpetrators, it will be repeated. It's not true to me.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you so much, Colonel. Thank you, Pa. Yeah, we've come to the end of what I've read. For me personally, I think it's been very fruitful. It's been very informative, and I just hope that and I wish our viewers also share in those. Just to basically, I'll conclude by what I started with anyway. That we are having these debates and exchanges. It's not like to browbeat anybody in the submission, or just like it's a zero-sum game of winners and losers. I think what we are engaging here is just to Gambians to embrace this culture of having discourse. It doesn't matter how difficult the conversation is. We just have to have these conversations going. I think it's important. So, but what we've seen here today, I mean, you see this even if you have one-on-one conversations with Gambians or in groups of Gambians. We have diverse views. People who very strongly believe in what happened and what they think should be the remedial action, and others who don't believe in that, diametrically opposed. What I think is very important, we have the Colonel here, because whether the Colonel likes it or not, he was an insider. He was part of that Jammeh institution. Whether he likes it, I'm afraid to say. I mean, to lots of us, I mean, you don't know me, but I used to be in the Gambian Post with you and the Gambia L. To me, you are just embodiment of Jammeh. So yeah, not Jammeh as a person, not as Jammeh as a person. Let me correct that, but the institution of Jammeh. So with all his excesses, Jammeh had too much excesses, unfortunately. But like you said, I probably like you are right on this, and we have to all admit this. At the very beginning, even some of us were only in our late teens in the UK. We were screaming and shouting, but it didn't last too long. But that's no excuse not to seek justice. That's no excuse not to find the truth. That's no excuse for there not to be any mechanisms or vehicles of anything that could facilitate victims in the Gambia who do not feel, rightly or wrongly, that they are gonna get justice in the Gambia, to seek justice abroad. And that's what this conversation is all about. And what this conversation, especially some of the narrations Dr. Connell made here, it just basically put on display for all of us the national trauma that the Gambia went through. 22 years of, like I keep on saying, the social fabric being completely broken. So we can only correct this by seeking justice, really is important. Like Mr. Sambou said, I want to basically say this again. It's a shame, it's unfortunate we didn't have anybody from the victim center, because I think they really have their work cut out. Because I have this fear, and it might be unrealistic, that the TRRC is not going to be a body that is going to provide any justice to anybody in the Gambia. I think it's going to be a thing whereby people come and embrace each other and say, let's move on, let's forget we all Gambians and move on. But once again, I would like to say thank you to my guests. I think we need to do this again. We need to have another episode. Probably we can, by then, we can have political analysts. We can have somebody from the victim center. We can even have victims here. They can also come and give us their view. Because myself and Mr. Sambou, we're not part of the establishment, Jammeh's establishment, like Uncle. But at the same time, we couldn't say we're direct victims. So it would be nice to have victims here. But once again, I would like to say thank you to everybody. We extend our gratitude to people who view us and some of the people who were commented on here. Unfortunately, we couldn't show all of you. We like to make this interactive. But I'm hoping that this will be the first of many to come. And then some of you viewing and commenting, please, this platform is here for everybody. And we are not here to castigate. We might joke around, but it will not be to a level whereby people become abusive to each other. We are not engaged in that. That is not going to move the Gambia forward anywhere. On that note, I will say thank you to everybody. I will say thank you to my guests for honoring this invitation and for being such wonderful and informative with participants. Thank you. Good night, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, bye-bye.
My final comments is just a clarion call.